And Sharon, Tim, and Vipin, please take it away.
Great, thank you so much. Welcome to the Identity Special Interest Group for June 13th, 2024. Today on the agenda, we will go over some quick working group status updates, and then we'll hear from Vipin Varathan, who is, of course, a co-chair of the Identity SIG and also digital assets consultant and full stack engineer at DLT NYC. And he'll talk about digital identity in Consensus 2024. So looking forward to that. As usual, we are following the Linux Foundation antitrust policy, as well as the Hyperledger Code of Conduct. We're recording the call, and we'll post it on the meeting page later today. Let's see. Would anyone like to introduce themselves before we jump into our announcements and agenda? Or if anyone has any announcements before we jump into things, if anyone went to any conferences, EIC or Identity Week or anything else that they'd like to give a quick update about as well, that would be awesome. It was great to hear Sean's experience.
Shar, I'm sorry I didn't put anything into the wiki page. I will while we're chatting. A couple of things. The Open Wallet, pardon me, the Open Wallet Foundation held 2 Ask Me Anythings, also known as AMAs, with the OpenID Connect folks. The first session on Monday was OIDC for VP. Yesterday was OIDC for VCI. Both were really well attended, and honestly, well attended isn't nearly as important as the great questions that were asked. And it wasn't really a presentation of like how to do it or a demo. It was more of an Ask Me Anything, like here's the work that's going on, here's where it currently stands. This is really relevant to folks who are working in Europe or thinking of working in Europe or want to have wallets that are compliant with the architecture and reference framework released by the European Commission. And I'm going to put the links to those videos in the chat. I also have a link. Yeah, no worries. I also have a link to the Hyperledger Identity SIG playlist. Every single one of these sessions is recorded. Thanks to Vipin, I went back in time to some of the old identity working group calls and found the recordings for those. Kim Cameron speaking at this meeting, talking about the 7 laws of identity. They're all recorded. They're all up there. You can watch them at your leisure. If you ever miss, the recording will be on the Hyperledger YouTube, but we have a specific playlist that I put all of these into. So if you want to catch up and see what Colton talked about a couple weeks ago and you missed that call, you can definitely catch up or share it with a colleague. Obviously, it's on YouTube. And that was it for me. Thanks, Shar.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, we'll look out for those links in the chat and I can add them to the page. Dino, you have your hand up?
Yeah, oops. Thank you, Shar. Just a quick update from my side. So for those who are meeting for the first time virtually, my name is Dino Dell'Accia. I'm the Chief Information Officer of the United Nations Pension Fund based in New York. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Geneva, attended a World Summit on Information Society and AI for Good, organized by the UN ITU, the International Telecommunication Union. Excellent annual event, and I had the honor and privilege to present and to lead a session where I share the blockchain and biometric-based digital identity solution that I implemented here at the UN Pension Fund. We went live in 2021. We have now approximately 40,000 users in 190 countries using the application. And also, we announced what happened on June 3rd, a few days ago. Basically, the extension of this application is now being translated into a UN digital identity solution for all the UN staff members. We went live on June 3rd with a specific technical use case for the beginning between us, the UN Pension Fund, and World Food Program. And shortly after, we are going to onboard our colleagues from other UN organizations, starting with UNDP, and most probably following by UNICEF, UNHCR, UN Secretariat, and many others. The event in Geneva, the WSIS, I had the honor to have with me as a guest speakers a representative of the Holy See that reminded us about the need to keep the human being at the center of any technological innovation, even if very sophisticated, like blockchain, and in my case, biometrics and AI. I also had Sandra Rowe, the Chief Executive Officer of the GBBC, the Global Blockchain Business Council, who spoke about the progress and the need for standardization, and specific about the global standard mapping initiative that the GBBC has been leading for several years. And I also announced that this coming September, and by the way, you're all invited, on September 23rd, there will be a side event to the UN General Assembly. My office will be hosting the annual GBBC UNGA side event, and we will be talking definitely about digital identity as well. An additional update, my specific application here at the UN Pension Fund is already being certified with the ISO 27001 standard, but as I shared in the previous presentation, being a former IT auditor, I'm obsessed about the need for assurance, especially with emerging technology. We started a process to obtain the ISO 30107, I believe, which is a specific ISO certification for biometric-based digital identity solutions, specifically to certify the ability to withstand the PAD presentation attack detection. Finally, again, you're all invited this coming December, from December 15 to 19, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. There will be the annual UN Internet Governance Forum, where I'm co-leading the working group on blockchain assurance and standardization, and we'll be making presentation and leading session at that event. For those who are interested, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much, Sean. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Tino. If you have any links to any of those conferences and events, I can put them on the meeting page and help spread the word. So thank you so much for all those updates and announcements.
Sure, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Daniel.
Sure, thanks. Do what Dino did. Yeah, thanks for that, Dino. Very interesting. So yeah, so you mentioned EIC. I was at EIC the past couple of years and this year. I think that one of the major takeaways that myself and a lot of other folks had was it traditionally was identity and access management focus, enterprise identity focus. This session, it was, I would say, the majority, maybe even 3/4, decentralized digital identity with and its linkage to IAM, identity and access management, but it was really focused on decentralized digital identity. And because it was held in Berlin, perhaps it was a good third of the presentations had some mention of the EU digital identity wallet in it. The Open Identity Foundation solutions did play a role in that, because some of the EU digital identity wallet protocols specify those. There was a lot of interest in that, a lot of interest in trust frameworks as well. And maybe that's because I had for some of the sessions, I had my trust over IP hat on, so there was a lot of discussion in that regard, in the trust spanning protocol and the trust registries protocol that is out for public comment. I'll leave it with Open Wallet Foundation was mentioned here. I also had that hat on and presented with Juliana Kafik from Microsoft on one of the reports we're working on, or guidance, I should say, is the Safe Wallet guide. That will be available for public comment soon. We'll put it out on social media, but we did have a session talking about what we're working on there. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those insights. It definitely sounds like a lot of hats that you wear, and I'm curious to hear updates on the Safe Wallet guide once that is out. So thank you. All right, any other announcements or introductions or conferences, observations that anyone wants to share before we jump into our agenda?
I would like to.
Please.
I just wanted to say hello to Dino. I thought I was in the wrong room.
Hi, Brad.
It's good to see you in here.
Likewise.
And I think that this group is the key to everything that we're doing with GBA. So my introduction is I'm a telecommunications startup situated on the campus of Oakland University in the Shotwell Gustafin Pavilion. I am working toward getting grant funding from the Department of Defense for a private network, a DSL private network. And we'll be working with identity management in the telecommunications space. Thank you for allowing me to speak or introduce myself.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Brett, and for introducing yourself. Great. All right, I think we can probably go ahead and jump into our working group updates. I'll go pretty quickly through updates, but please don't hesitate to stop me if you have information to add. And I'll pause at the end as well for anything that we didn't cover. So let's see, starting off with Hyperledger working groups. In the Indie Contributors working group, we had another summit. This one was focused on ledger redaction. This is when you make something on the ledger unreadable. And so we've had continued discussions about what implementation and next steps will look like for that. The Indie Bezu experimental work is continuing, and the upgrade to Ubuntu 22.04 work is going well as well. Let's see, in the Aries working group, they're discussing planning an interopathon potentially at the end of July. This one would be focused on unqualified DIDs and DIDCOM v2. Also working on a MeatEater reconfig, adding new messages, adding the ability to change the routing DID. And they're working as well on an Aries RFC for VDR protocol, which would help solve the firewall issues for agents accessing Indie networks, and it would help as well with fetching revocation data. The Aries Cloud Agent Python working group, let's see, I guess in terms of the bifold user group, as far as I can tell, they haven't been meeting recently, but feel free to let me know if I'm mistaken. In the Akapai working group, lots of discussion of issues and PRs. Let's see, getting closer to 1.0.0. There's a list of PRs and open issues that will be addressed before the release candidate. Also some discussion on considering dropping BBS signature support for now, talking through the issue and some different options for moving forward. Let's see. In Hyperledger Anon-Creds, they've been discussing privacy and unlinkability with zero-knowledge proofs, and discussions of Doc Networks Library and Anon-Creds v2, BBS support in Anon-Creds v2, a few different topics there that they've been discussing. All right, moving on to our TUIP working groups. Looks like the all members, they had the all members meeting last month on May 15th and heard a presentation from FindyNet. This is a Finnish nonprofit organization developing a national public-private network for verifiable data. If anyone went to that presentation, feel free to jump in and talk about it more. I am not aware of recent meetings of the governance stack since early April. The technology stack working group has met recently. They've got a bunch of task forces going on with the technology architecture, trust registry, trust spanning protocol, ACDC, AI and metaverse, and then not as many notes on the credential exchange protocols, did WebS, did method, X509 vid task force, and the trust did web task force. So there are more notes on all of these at the links that I have here. Won't go into too much detail on that right now. The ecosystem foundry group met in May and heard about the Bhutan NDI case study. And then it looks like the concepts and terminology group met as well on towards the end of May, talking about the terminology governance guide, spec up proposal, among some other agenda items. Let's see. In terms of the Decentralized Identity Foundation, in the DIDCOM spec working group, they have a bunch of DIDCOM swag that's at this link. So if you want t-shirts, hats, anything, you can check that out there. They've also been discussing the addition of post-quantum cipher suites and session mechanisms as well. And that's the meeting that meets on the first Monday of the month. So the rest of the meetings are the users group meeting. They met on June 8th and discussed EIC as well. It sounds like there were more mentions in the past of DIDCOM. There was good feedback to OpenID and DIDCOM work at the conference, and they've also been discussing the push notification draft. In terms of some of our later working groups on here, I haven't been able to find out more recent happenings in those groups, but feel free to let me know if you're involved in any of those and have any additional info. That's pretty much the end of our list. I know I went through that really quickly, so please jump in and let me know of any working groups that you're more involved in that you'd like to speak on now. All right. Unless anyone has anything additional that they'd like to share about working group status updates, I can go ahead and pass it over to Vipin.
Thanks, guys. So I'm going to start the presentation so that you can check out the presentation, and then I will. I hope everybody can hear me well, and
Yep.
I'm going to also turn off my camera because it's probably constrained by my internet speeds. So I'll stop the video.
Plus,
And
we
I'll
couldn't
share.
see your famous hat anyhow, right?
Yeah, I'm incognito. Anyway, so I gotta share my screen. Let me see where I have it. Hope everyone can see this, and I'm going to put it on full screen presentation mode. I hope everybody can see this. Okay, so Consensus 2024 is a huge conference. Everybody knows about it. This is after the conference moved to Austin. This is my first time. And also, I had shown up there under the avatar of a media person because I write for Forbes. So I was able to interview several people, which will be coming out in more detail on Forbes. But I just wanted to give a overview of all the different sort of activities. It is more of a very generic overview, and then I'll go into the identity part and look at a couple of solutions, a couple of presentations, because that's all we have time for, I believe. So the first thing is, it's huge. Like I said, they claim 15,000 participants, but I think most of them are probably coming on online remotely. But it was still pretty big. So the themes that are going on there are, one is the casino and the computer. The casino, as we know, is speculative plays on crypto itself, which has taken off like a rocket ever since we have the ETFs, ever since we have the various institutions participating in this. Of course, we had touched 60,000 for Bitcoin before, but now it's gone even further higher. So the casino aspect is alive and well. And the other is the computer, which is basically means all kinds of technical work by builders, by everybody. And they are not in separate compartments, as you can imagine. The other is, of course, the cathedral and the bazaar. It kind of follows the famous sort of metaphor for a centralized development and for open source sort of decentralized development. Cathedral being the centralized activity, and the bazaar being where you can interact in a peer-to-peer manner. And so those two elements were present in Consensus 2024. And surprisingly, I feel like the cathedral and the bazaar, the same as the casino and the computer, are not in watertight compartments. There is people who go to the bazaar go to the cathedral sometimes, and vice versa. So these are all ways to understand the space and the motivations of the people who attend Consensus. Of course, they all talk the bazaar game, which is decentralized, uncensorable, and so on and so forth. And the themes, of course, this is just a small portion of the themes that happen. Web3, of course, which share the characteristics that we just mentioned: decentralized, peer-to-peer, uncensorable, and more than anything else, the governance is through some kind of a smart contract or some form of automated governance, which strengthen the peer-to-peer nature and also strengthen the fact that you cannot censor. Then, of course, crypto trading, gaming, CBDCs, surprisingly or not surprisingly, a lot of people were against it. And there were several political appearances, including from RFK Jr., who showed up as a true proponent of crypto and, of course, got standing ovations because of that. But and there were several Senate candidates, several sitting members of the Congress, and others who showed up, all preaching the, you know, preaching to the convinced. Then there's RWA, although it was slightly muted, but it comes back with a roar. Of course, art, AI, policy and regulation, as I mentioned, is a primary concern, and of course, politics. But what is the thing, the unspoken thing there? Identity undergirds it all. Peer-to-peer obviously means, there has to be a way to say this is your peer and some way to determine that and to transact with them. Releasing a new smart contract or putting it in production, participating in consensus. All of these require some form of identity, although many of them claim to be pseudonymous. We have seen in the past that pseudonymity can be penetrated by a determined attacker. And I think the upshot of all this is that even if they get your data, which they do, if there are laws constraining its use, then we would be better off. In the most basic form of identity that we are talking about here is the based on asymmetric key cryptography, public and private keys, and now the variants on it with multi-sig of all kinds, secret sharing, and other ways to prevent total loss if you lose your private key. Or if you're attacked, how do you recover the money or recover the resources that have been stolen? These are important elements. The other important element is, of course, the use of identity as a private matter, but at the same time has to follow regulations. And in order to make all this easier, we have seen the growth of user interfaces and usability. And one of the most important things that we need in this election and other ways to guard against bad actors or bots even, or AI masquerading as real human beings, which threatens democracy, threatens a lot of different key features of our society. So Sybil, I'm just going to go through a little bit about Sybil because I think it's very key. And the defining characteristic is the presence of multiple independent identities controlled by one entity. And we have seen the things that are happening with Sybil. So why am I saying all this? Because I want to sketch the various solutions put forward by people at Consensus, by the companies, by the entrepreneurs who have a wide, let's say, who have a wide influence on how things develop. So this is from Daniel Buchner's presentation at Consensus. So we are all familiar with this transformation that we desire, which is to create a new class of apps and protocols that put individuals at the center with a self-owned identity and restore control over their data. But this is an idealistic view because of regulations, because of other factors like KYC and others. These particular aspects like self-owned identity and control over your data is limited by law, by policy, and various other aspects. And this is our favorite, the triangle, but of course now the triangle is broken up into little sections here because of the way that, so the issuer, the verifier, and the holder being in this triangle, and how it works. It was Daniel's presentation in Consensus. I'll go into this a little more in the other presentations because they talk about protecting certain aspects of this by not sharing the credential, for example, rather sharing a proof of the credential to the verifier. The issuer still issues a credential. Here, of course, it is a specific credential that is an educational credential. I talked with the CEO of Civic, and I did ask him why he did not want to use DIDs. His main aim, I mean, Civic's main aim, they have been working on this identity since 2015, and I think the latest version is targeted towards the European Union MICA law. So I'll go into that in a little detail in the next slide. But Civic has been in this space, and they claim to have something new with the new Civic Pass. Although I haven't really seen the details and haven't checked it out myself, but I can tell you what they're claiming in the next slide. So it is mainly to meet upcoming regulatory requirements for EU customers. According to MICA, that it's 1,000 euros or more, you have to follow MICA. It has to be dynamic in the sense that a customer who And, you know, the second point after this is jurisdiction dependent. So it has to be, so suppose you're allowed to transact in a certain location does not mean that you're allowed to transact in every location that is covered. And this covers EU customers, which means that any CAS hoping to onboard and service EU customers have to have this solution that is global. It is similar in some ways to the identity work that, I mean, identity regulations that came up in the EU, GDPR in particular. I don't know what the situation would be like with respect to the current elected EU Parliament, which is swung rightward. So maybe some of these laws will be looked at again. So Civic Pass is a non-transferable token, and it is based on biometrics, which I know that Daniel would love. And biometrics is being used because it protects against Sybil in a big way. So if it's implemented properly, it will protect against Sybil attacks. But the next point is kind of interesting because the crypto asset service providers can collect verified identity information for storage so that they can then share it with the authorities in case there are any questions. And the tooling is meant to be very comprehensive. They have an API, they have all kinds of stuff there. And the data that they are sharing for a sender and receiver include name, account numbers, date of birth, and must travel with the transaction, which we'll get into that when we talk about the message-based cross-chain protocols in a minute. We have about 5 chat messages or 6. I'm wondering what they are because I am not opening them and I don't know what people are saying on chat. So if anything pops up, please stop me and ask me or tell me about what's happening on that chat. One of the solution providers was Galaxy, which has interposed a ZK proof between the holder and the verifier. And here, of course, the verifier is shown as applications because most of the interaction that you're going to do is with applications. Even if the verifier is an institution, it's probably got an application that you interact with in order to either prove something that you're a accredited investor or some such data point so that you are onboarded and you can transact. But remembering that it has to be dynamic, that means if you ever fall out of that accredited investor category, then it has to stop you from transacting. I don't know what happens to your current holdings at that point, but this is the kind of this is the kind of approach that will improve privacy, but is it even legal? We do not know. Is ZKP a valid method? This is, I'm going towards a cross-chain compatibility solution. This is interchain identity, which is used by Cosmos. I also talked to Ethan Bookman about the two companies that he has right now. One is Cycles, the other is more informal systems, which is more on the consulting and the thought leadership side, whereas Cycles is a protocol to rework money itself. But as you can imagine, those solutions need some kind of identity solution, and this is something called interchange ID, put forth by ICS 27. So you can see that it consists of decentralized identity management, self-sovereign key management, mnemonic phrase generation, string encryption, enhanced security, and cross-chain compatibility. So the key here is, how do you transact across chains? Because we know for sure that we are going to get into a multi-chain world. Not everything is going to be on one chain. Although certain chain maximalists say that they are the only chain that is really true, and everybody else is not the right chain. I've heard those arguments from the Ethereum people, from Bitcoin guys. Of course, they are the first maxis. But reality is probably going to be that we are going to have multiple chains. And this is using something called Shamir secrets, which allows you to recover wallets and mitigating single points of failure. In other words, losing your private key. So how it works is by breaking a secret into multiple shares. Each share is distributed, and the secret can only be reconstructed when you pass the reconstruction threshold, which is obviously going to be something like N of M, or M of N, where M is less than N normally. That means it allows recovery. And along with lockups, it can protect assets against thievery. And this is a picture of a CCIP network, which is a chain link CCIP cross-chain protocol. Here, all the data along with the asset travels cross from the source to the destination. And here, DAWN is a acronym for Decentralized Oracle Network. And it has an inbuilt risk management network on top of it. Risk management network controls. So since all the data is packaged along with the asset, we have identity data on the sender and receiver, also traveling across from the on-ramp to the off-ramp. So all the users interact using the router, which is another component that is part of the Chainlink network. I did ask Sergey Nazarov, I interviewed him as well, and I delved into some of the details of this, and I did ask him whether he is working with any non-EVM chains, and he pointed to Aptos, which was a big announcement there that Chainlink is working with Aptos. I don't know more details of Aptos, but I believe it is a shoot, or let's say a result of what happened in Libra and DM, since the guys who are working on it were participants in the initial DM work. So with that, I just give a bunch of links here which point to the different talks that I refer to in my presentation. And if there are any questions or any comments, I would love to answer them. And so I probably should stop my share and look at the chat so that I can see.
So Vipin, I think the chat was folks adding to what you were saying. Dino has put up some posts. Daniel posted the ARF, the Architecture and Reference Framework from the European Commission on digital wallets. I think I'd made a comment about how Daniel Buckner was also ex-Mozilla. So when he does the web we want, that was a Mozilla tagline from 8 or 9 years ago, which I still think is incredibly relevant. I didn't see any questions in the chat. So if anyone has questions for Vipin, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah. I just wanted to say also a few things about your, Dino, your your links that you put in. I am a GBBC ambassador. That's the first thing. The second thing is I lead the policy and governance working group in ITU, a DCGI. It's called Digital Currency Global Initiative. So just to put my presence in context, so that we all understand where we're coming from. Anyway, go ahead, Dino.
Excellent, VP. No, thank you very much for sharing these details, and very, very happy to engage with like-minded people. I just wanted to ask your opinion on the status of the privacy-preserving technologies. Of course, we all speak and know about zero-knowledge proof and the various type of implementation of it. What about chameleon hashing mechanism that are, I believe, they started to more and more appear in many publications as a result of the mostly research done on the implementation, but also about their potential impact on addressing or resolving the famous debate of the right to be forgotten when and if certain type of PII they should not, but sometimes they are put on blockchain. What is your opinion on this specific technology?
Well, I think the EU commissioners have it wrong in some senses that they claim that even if you hash the PII, so first let's start with hashing. Hash the PII and put it on the blockchain. They claim that that itself is a somehow, if that hash remains without on the blockchain immutably forever, they claim that that is a leakage of PII, which I don't agree with. But it doesn't matter what I think. It
Well,
matters what they
unless it's
think.
a salted hash, it is pseudonymous, not anonymous. That's basically the claim.
Salted hash, but those are the best practices, right?
All I'm saying is from Article 29, I believe it was, they claim that if you just hash, Dan Bockenheimer, then it's pseudonymous. It doesn't protect it unless it's a salted hash. Then you have to deal with key management and stuff like that.
Yeah, but their assertion goes out the window because hashing is supposed to have the two properties which protect it from that, right? I mean, the first pre-image protection and the second pre-image protection. Protect that unless you're saying that is, oh, just take Daniel Bockenheimer and hash it, and you'll see the same hash on the blockchain.
Right.
Is that what they're claiming? I mean, that's not it, right? Because obviously hashing does not just involve your first name and your birthday and your, whatever. Even if you just change the order in which you hash it, then the hash changes. So I don't get where this comes from, but obviously you have a better idea of this than me. So going back to chameleon hashing, that was supposed to be the big, because obviously that means you can change the underlying data and come up with the same hash or something like that. That is the whole chameleon hashing principle, which of course removes one of the pre-image protections from the hash. And that came up back in 2017 or 2016, I think. Was it Accenture or some other company that came up with this solution? So chameleon hashing, I don't know. I mean, it's, again, it can only be modified. The data can only be modified by someone who possesses some kind of a key. If I remember the paper I read probably 6 years ago or something like that. But you're saying, Dino, you're saying that new guys are doing this. New guys are into this.
Yeah,
Chameleon?
I saw some presentation from researcher, I believe a university in Austria, where they were demonstrating the practical implementation, where exactly the claim is they are able to maintain the integrity of the blocks, but at the same time enable the alteration of the content, and therefore, in terms of data privacy, having the ability to, if you will, terminate or remove data after an expiration of time. So I never, of course, I never worked on the practical implementation, but I was just curious to know from subject matter expert like you, what was your opinion?
Well, I mean, when it first came out, it caused a furore because that was basically somebody saying, "Oh, you could put something on the blockchain, of hash data and then change the data underneath after a while," and that, of course, caused a lot of people to say this is not what we had intended, or chameleon hashing is dead, whatever. So I'm sure Dan Backenheimer has something to say about that too, because he's in the midst of all
No,
this.
all I was saying, I put it in the chat is what the EU is saying, and that about pseudonymized data. So if you create a hash that's pseudonymous, it jumbles up the first name, last name, date of birth, as opposed to anonymized data. They're saying pseudonymized data qualifies as personal data under GDPR. In the link that the correct link that I provided, because I still had the ARF in the buffer, is the European data protection link that talks about the nuances there between anonymized and pseudonymized.
Yes. I mean, the whole point is that what hashing is supposed to do, and then saying that is somehow leaking private data. I don't know. I mean, it's all a little too involved in a certain sense, but I can see why people would say, oh, that's leaking data, or that is private data. Now you need chameleon hashing to solve this problem. Anyway, I think we have reached the end of time for us, but anything else you have, you can ask me, and if I know the answer or if I have an opinion, I'll share it. So, Char, are we going to put some of these chats in the, the links, especially in the chats in the meeting page?
Yes, I can definitely do that as soon as
Because
we close up.
yeah, we are ready to go, because we don't want to have people waiting around, and everybody is busy. So in the other sense with Dino, I would say that I'm in New York City, so we can meet up sometime.
My pleasure.
If you want to talk.
Sure,
further.
Vipin. Thank you. That would be great. Let's connect, and it will be my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
And thanks for attending. And
Thank you.
we will probably invite some of the people I have talked about, like Chris Hart, the CEO of Civic, maybe even Sergey, or some others who are implementing and creating solutions. They are definitely moving towards traditional finance in all aspects. Chainlink wants to be involved in RWA, of course, because that's where the money is. And thanks. And I conclude, and hopefully we will engage later on same or similar topics.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vipin, for your presentation and sharing your observations. Thanks to everyone for joining, and for those who shared their experiences about recent conferences and working group updates. And yeah, this was a great call, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Char.
Thank you so
Vipin.
much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Have a good day.